law school professor of political science, Rick Hasen, and former Pennsylvania Governor Ed Rendell. Gentlemen, it's great to have both of you with us. Rick, I'll start with you in that statement released today from the FBI. How concerned are you? How concerned should we be of the situation that we're facing when the FBI has to put out a statement to reassure the public of election integrity at the same time that we see Donald Trump and his allies, as Dasha was just saying, pushing this false narrative that the other side are cheaters and that election denialism becoming a center or cornerstone message of his in the final days?
Well, you know, this is very much like what Trump was doing in the last election. Of course, in the last election, much of the stuff was tried to be spread over social media. It was unsuccessful because Twitter and Meta were doing more to police disinformation. YouTube was doing more now. They're all doing less. And so I think it's important that word gets out there. There are trusted sources of authority. When people hear about, claims of fraud, almost always they turn out to be wrong, and so people have to take that with a grain of salt. But the fact is that Donald Trump is feeding a Republican base that has been primed for at least since Donald Trump's been on the scene since 2016 to believe that whenever Donald Trump loses, it's because someone is cheating. And that just creates a very volatile situation in the country where people, millions of people might not accept election results if they don't go Donald Trump's way come next week.
Governor, Dasha was alluding to some of these lawsuits in your state, Pennsylvania. And when it comes to Pennsylvania, experts say its unique voting laws make it fertile ground for dubious voter fraud claims and lawsuits. But that is unlikely to stop the certification of election results. And as we said, you still got Trump and J.D. Vance doing just that, exploiting the state laws to make false claims of fraud. How concerned are you about that?
Well, I'm concerned. This is the same song they sung 4 years ago, but it's a different verse. And 4 years ago, understand, they filed 43 lawsuits against the election results and the process. We had a great attorney general, and he's now our governor, Josh Shapiro, and he went 43-0, didn't lose one challenge. And many of those cases were decided by judges that Donald Trump had appointed to the bench. So there was no chicanery at all. And Donald Trump has had it again. He just earlier this week, he attacked the election procedures in Lancaster and York County. And he said that there were false ballots filed. There weren't false ballots filed. What the workers found was that there were fraudulent registration forms found. And the workers found them themselves. And we have great election workers all over the state. They take their job seriously. They wouldn't cheat for either side. And in fact, the system worked. This was found by the election workers. Not by Donald Trump, not by his campaign, by the election workers. They sent it to the district attorney. Those votes won't be counted, and there'll be a criminal investigation to see who was responsible for those filing those votes. It's the way the system should work. And it did work in Pennsylvania in 2020. It's going to work again in 2024.
Rick, let me ask you about the Stephen Bannon soundbite that we played, because it's all but certain that Trump will declare victory prematurely. I guess that's the fear if he begins to trail in the results. He did it in 2020. Steve Bannon was saying he should have come out earlier in the night and basically declared himself the victor and try to, again, cast doubts on these results. But, I'm curious to get your thoughts on how that plays out on election night if Donald Trump comes out prematurely, tries to declare himself the victor, or uses the closeness of the race or the uncertainty of the results to his advantage to sow that doubt.
Well, I think it's very likely that if we see patterns that look like last year, if you take a state like Pennsylvania, more reported votes are going to be for Donald Trump on election night than are going to be for Kamala Harris, just because the in-person votes are counted first. Rural votes are often reported faster than cities. Both of these things lead to Democratic votes being reported later. So, he can try to play on this so-called blue shift or red mirage as a way to claim victory, but it's really baked in. I think we're inoculated against it. What everyone needs to understand is that the race, if it's close, would be too early to call. and then everyone's going to need to have patience. And I think no one who saw what happened last time, Donald Trump declared victory last time, and he didn't win the election. And I think people know that. And Trump has been saying outlandish things for as long as he's been around, and people will believe it or not believe it, not based on reality, but based on what they want to be the truth, if they're going to accept those kinds of statements.
Governor Rendell, one of the biggest problems right now is misinformation and disinformation. It's not just Trump who's pushing these lies out about Pennsylvania. Elon Musk, owner of X, he is using his platform to spread misinformation about voting in your state. He's already set up camp in Pennsylvania to campaign hard for Trump, emerging as like his biggest financial donor. It's one thing for Trump to do it. It's another thing when one of the world's richest men and owner of the largest or one of the largest social media sites is platforming these lies.
And we're still a big government contractor. Musk's companies make billions of dollars from the government. It's a terrible situation, and something should be done to rectify it in the future. But Ayman, I want to stress one thing that you said. Pennsylvania has a particular problem because we're one of only 7 states that say we can't touch the mail ballots prior to 7 a.m. when the polls open on Election Day. So as a result, it takes us a whole lot longer to get our mail ballots counted. And we were blessed in 2020, we didn't certify our election results until Saturday after the election. We tried an independent watchdog agency that I'm part of. We tried to get the legislature to change that and allow the ballots to be prepared 3 days prior to Election Day. That would have shortened the time we were out, but it didn't. The legislature couldn't agree on it. So there's going to be a delay with Pennsylvania's count. We're not going to have the final count on election night. We're not going to have it on probably the day after election. So it raises suspicion levels. We've been explaining to people for months now why that is.
Right.
Because of the way the law is framed. But it will help if the media stresses that point.
Yeah, very important reminder. Again, Pennsylvania emerging as one of the states that is going to be closely watched. We say that about a lot of states, but no doubt Pennsylvania will be front and center.
I'm optimistic. I'm optimistic because as they ratchet up these claims of fraud, it means they're seeing something in their poll.
Right. All right. Former Governor Ed Rendell, Rick Hassan, thank you to the both of you. Greatly appreciate your